Welcome to This Explainer. Whenever we get a headache or need our daily vitamin, we usually just pop a capsule without a second thought. But have you ever stopped to think about the insane microscopic science protecting your health behind every single one of those little shells? Today, we're diving straight into demystifying process validation and uncovering the incredible journey of the capsule, from raw microscopic powders all the way to the finished product in your hand.
So what actually makes a safe capsule? I'm going to challenge you right out of the gate here. What really separates a life-saving, flawlessly performing medication from, well, a total manufacturing disaster? It's not just throwing the right ingredients in a blender. It's about proving, without a shadow of a doubt, that those ingredients come together perfectly, every single time. And that absolute certainty, that's what we call process validation.
And get this, 1%. What if I told you that an ingredient making up literally less than 1% of a capsule's entire formula can completely dictate whether the whole product succeeds or fails? No way, right? But it's true. It's the ultimate butterfly effect in pharmaceutical manufacturing. The tiniest variance right at the very beginning can cause a massive, catastrophic failure at the end.
To see exactly how manufacturers prevent those failures, we're going to take a quick walk through the factory floor. We'll start with the raw material foundation, then look at the excipients, that tiny 1%. After that, we'll design the perfect shell, look at the actual encapsulation process, and finally, pass the ultimate quality control tests. Think of these as the absolute survival checkpoints of validation.
All right, checkpoint number 1, the raw material foundation. We are starting right at the source. Validation starts way before anything actually goes into a capsule, in a phase called pre-formulation. This is where manufacturers rigorously validate the active pharmaceutical ingredient, the actual drug itself, and the excipients, which are the added materials. If you mess up this foundation, the rest of the process doesn't stand a chance. Now, they're looking at two main things. First, physical characters. We're talking particle size. And this isn't just trivia. Size directly affects how the powder literally flows on the factory floor and how evenly it blends together. On the flip side, we have chemical characters. Hidden chemical impurities are super dangerous because they can directly attack the actual stability of the drug.
Another huge factor is a material's hygroscopic nature, which, is really just a fancy scientific way of saying how much moisture it absorbs. But why does this matter to us? Well, it's absolutely crucial for handling the stuff on the manufacturing line and making sure the process is reproducible. If a powder pulls too much moisture from the air, it just clumps up into a mess. Validating this means the medicine sitting right now in your somewhat humid bathroom cabinet actually stays stable and effective.
Which brings us right to step 2, excipients, those tiny but mighty ingredients. Remember that 1% we talked about earlier? Even though excipients are just a tiny fraction of the whole capsule, they are absolute deal breakers for product performance. Manufacturers have to meticulously validate the grade, the source, the exact particle size, and even the lot-to-lot variability. Let's look at MCC, microcrystalline cellulose. It's a super common excipient, but it's not always identical. MCC can show wild changes in its chemical makeup, crystal structure, and particle size between different manufacturing lots. And those tiny, microscopic differences, they can completely wreck a blend's uniformity or ruin a wet granulation process. You absolutely cannot just assume batch A is the same as batch B.
And if you miss those differences, you are in for some serious trouble, especially with direct compression formulations. If the particle sizes don't match up between lots, your initial mix won't be uniform, or worse, the materials can physically segregate during compression. It's kind of like baking a cake and having all the sugar just detach and sink right to the bottom. In medicine, that kind of separation is a total safety failure.
All right, moving on to stage 3, designing the perfect shell. Basically, building the capsule's armor.
We honestly spend so much time thinking about the actual drug inside that we totally ignore the outside. But the shell is a highly engineered system of its own. It's definitely not just a basic container holding powder. Manufacturers have to provide a hard scientific reason for every single ingredient in that shell formula. They have to justify the exact level and grade used. They have to explain why they picked a specific size and shape. They even have to validate the exact identifying color. Literally nothing is left to chance.
And this is where it gets crazy. Remember those moisture-hungry, hygroscopic materials we talked about? You have to make sure the shell and the powder inside are chemically compatible. Why? Because a super hygroscopic powder can literally suck the water right out of its own capsule shell. I mean, think about that. If the shell dries out, it becomes brittle and cracks. And if the drug absorbs that water, the active ingredient stability is completely ruined. It is a really delicate chemical balancing act.
Now, to get those contents perfectly prepped to go inside the shell, sometimes just simple blending isn't enough. You have to follow a meticulous sequence, almost like a highly technical baking show. A full granulation prep might mean mixing the raw materials, followed by wet milling, then carefully drawing them out, drying milling them down to the exact right size, and then finally blending. And yeah, every single one of those steps has to be validated to prove the output is exactly identical every single time.
Which leads us to checkpoint 4, the encapsulation process, the critical, high-speed final step.
Once your powders are prepped, things move fast. This is the high-speed stage where the contents finally meet the shell, right before it's ready for the public. Because encapsulation machinery runs unbelievably fast, there are some major survival factors for these materials. Manufacturers have to test the equipment at a wide range of speeds just to find a safe operating window. At those insane speeds, the powders need exceptionally good flow properties. They can't just jam up the gears. And most importantly, they have to maintain a perfectly consistent density as they're packed into the shells. Because if the density changes, the dose changes, and that is a massive no-go.
And here we are at the final phase, step 5, passing the final test, the absolute strictest exams of quality control.
So the capsule's put together, but we're not done yet, not even close. It has to face a battery of QC exams before it ever sees the inside of a pharmacy. On one hand, you've got physical tests, like the disintegration test to make sure the thing actually breaks apart properly in your stomach, plus strict weight variation checks. Then, on the other hand, you have the chemical tests, things like the dissolution test, the assay, and content uniformity checks. These guarantee that the exact correct dose of the active chemical is perfectly distributed inside.
But here's the thing, process validation isn't just about day one. Manufacturers have to conduct long-term quality assurance too. This means ongoing stability testing to ensure the medicine is still potent months or even years down the line. They also run moisture permeation tests to guarantee that that perfectly engineered shell keeps protecting its contents from the outside world for its entire shelf life.
So what does this all mean? What's the ultimate takeaway? Really, it boils down to this. Validation ensures the encapsulation process consistently produces capsules meeting all quality, identity, purity, and potency specifications. From the very first microscopic powder tested in pre-formulation, all the way to the moment the final product ships out, validation is this incredible, invisible shield protecting the consumer.
Which leads me with one final thought for you. Next time you take a simple daily medication or your morning vitamin, are you going to look at it the same way? Will you recognize the absolutely staggering amount of unseen science, the meticulous engineering, and the rigorous validation trapped inside that tiny little shell? I really hope this explainer sparked your curiosity today and showed you the hidden complexity of something we take for granted every single day. Thanks so much for joining me, and as always, keep learning.